In 1951, Russia at the time began sending dogs into space, and they were some of the first animals to survive space flight, but many never made it home.
Lift off. We're receiving data again. Let us know when you regain the signal.
When we think about primates in space, we usually think of Ham and Enos, the two chimps NASA launched in advance of its Mercury astronauts in the early 1960s.
All three start panel lights are correct. Mercury go. Evacuate lights on.
But more than a decade before these famous chimps took flight, scientists launched rhesus monkeys on V-2 missiles. All named Albert, they were among the first casualties of the early space age.
Stepping out from the Earth is the biggest human achievement. But before we knew that would be safe for us, animals were launched into the heavens, paving the way for human exploration. Let's meet those pioneers who visited space before us.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Specially trained, the 7-pound rhesus monkey will ride into space to help chart the way for future human astronauts.
The mission, called Little Joe 2, was scheduled to be launched on December 4th, 1959, and in its capsule, it carried a small rhesus monkey called Sam. He was placed in a specially created chair and restrained. After the launch, Little Joe 2 flew 11 minutes until landing in the Atlantic Ocean, 194 miles away from the launching site in Wallops Island, Virginia. During re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, the capsule successfully launched its secondary parachute at 20,000 feet and the main parachute at 10,000 feet. It achieved the altitude of 55 miles, 3 minutes of weightlessness, and during launch, Monkey Sam experienced force 19 times that of normal gravity. The first examination of the monkey showed that he was in good shape, and he did not receive any negative effects from this flight.
Sam is in there all right, alive, kicking and happy, having helped test emergency escape mechanism for tomorrow's human astronauts.
Enos.
It's a giant step as scientists and technicians prepare to orbit Enos, a 5-year-old chimpanzee, around the Earth.
On November 29th, 1961, the US sent another chimp, Enos, into space. Unlike Ham, this time, Enos was going all the way into orbit. The plan was for Enos to complete 3 orbits, but the mission was stopped after just 2. There were problems with the capsule getting too hot and issues with a test system on board, which led to Enos getting shocked 76 times. Despite this, he safely returned to Earth without any lasting issues. Surprisingly, there were no more attempts to send an ape into orbit, and the pride of the US took another hit.
The chimp's cabin began to heat up. Control officers decided to bring him down before he completed his 3rd trip.
Fruit flies. Almost 70 years back, a bunch of fruit flies did something pretty amazing. They became the first living things to go to space and come back. Now, you might be thinking, fruit flies? Really? Well, these little guys were more interesting than you would expect. They share about 60% of their DNA with us humans, and if this resemblance to humans wasn't enough, over 75% of the genes causing diseases in humans are also in fruit flies. So, scientists saw them as tiny astronauts who could tell us how space might affect humans. On the 20th of February, 1947, the US sent some fruit flies on a V-2 rocket from New Mexico. The flies went up 67 miles, a bit higher than Earth's atmosphere border, then safely parachuted down. The capsule they were in broke off, but guess what? Tests showed that space didn't harm them at all. Hector. In August of 1960, French scientists trained 6 lab rats for space travel. Only one showed real promise, called Hector. The French sewed him a creepy leather suit with metal springs and took a ton of pictures. He did quite well up there, handling 12 Gs of takeoff force in his cool little spacesuit. After all, he had been spinning for over 30 weeks in a centrifuge before that, so he was prepared. This begs the question, how was he trained? He spun for weeks at a time in a centrifuge, hooked to the wall, to simulate space in a satellite. This was the same year when Russian scientists sent a pair of white lab rats on Sputnik 5. Laika dog.
Laika, who had been especially trained for this flight.
Laika was a brave dog who became the first living being to orbit Earth. She was a stray from Moscow, chosen by Soviet scientists in 1957 for a historic space mission. Strapped into the Sputnik 2 spacecraft, Laika traveled into space, paving the way for human space exploration. Laika's journey helped scientists learn about the effects of space travel on living organisms. Although Laika's mission was a significant achievement, it was also a sad story. The technology to bring her back safely hadn't been developed yet, and she couldn't return home. Despite her sacrifice, Laika's mission contributed valuable information to space research. Laika's legacy lives on, as she remains a symbol of courage and exploration in the quest to understand the mysteries of the universe. Félicette. Félicette, a brave and curious cat, played a significant role in space exploration. In 1963, scientists chose her for a special mission to study the effects of space travel. Félicette, a French feline, soared into the unknown aboard a rocket. Her journey helped scientists understand how space conditions affected living beings. During the mission, Félicette experienced weightlessness, providing valuable insights for future space endeavors. The scientific community praised her contributions to space research, and she became a furry pioneer in the quest for knowledge beyond our planet. Félicette's story highlights the importance of teamwork and the courage of unexpected heroes, even those with whiskers and tails. Her legacy lives on as a reminder of the boundless curiosity that drives us to explore new frontiers, both in space and in the hearts of those who appreciate her extraordinary journey. Albert II. Albert II, a brave space monkey, embarked on a vital mission in 1951 to help scientists understand the effects of space travel on living beings. Wearing a special spacesuit, he flew in a rocket, experiencing zero gravity where things floated around him. Launched from Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico, he reached an altitude of 83 miles, becoming the first mammal, primate, and monkey in space. Unfortunately, during re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere, a parachute failure led to a high-speed impact. However, data from his capsule revealed he was fine until the landing. Albert II became a little hero in space exploration history, demonstrating how animals contribute to our understanding of the universe. Albert I? Wait, Albert II. What about Albert Pards? Well, not all launches went well. You see, Albert I was supposed to launch a year earlier, on June 18th, 1948. But there were many problems, and the mission didn't go as planned. Albert's breathing gear was removed before launch, and the parachute system for landing failed. So, even if he had a working oxygen supply, he wouldn't have made it through re-entry. Albert was given anesthesia before takeoff, so he probably didn't realize what was happening, but it's still a tragedy. Despite only reaching a height of 39 miles before yet another failure, this time a defective rocket valve, Albert I faced difficulties and didn't survive. However, his journey helped scientists learn more about space exploration. Albert III. In the early attempts to send Albert monkeys to space, next in the line of duty was Albert III. While the first two Alberts were rhesus monkeys, Albert III was a long-tailed macaque. On September 16, 1949, the US launched another V-2 rocket. While the scientist had gathered information for the previous two attempts this time, they were hoping for a bullseye. However, destiny had other plans. Following the launch, the rocket exploded just 10 seconds after liftoff. The previous two monkeys, all named Albert, met different fates, from suffocation and a failed parachute deployment during landing. But this time, the US had a minor issue with the rocket that created a huge setback in the entire mission. Albert IV. Failures of Albert I, II, and III launches weren't going to stop the US in their quest for getting the first animal to space. On December 12, 1949, the last V-2 monkey flight was launched at White Sands. Albert IV, a rhesus monkey attached to monitoring instruments, was the payload. It was a successful flight. His flight reached 130.6 kilometers, with no ill effects on the monkey. However, Albert IV met with the same fate as Albert II when re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. It also fell victim to a parachute failure, and unfortunately created a huge impact upon landing. Russian space tortoises. On September 18, 1968, a spacecraft named Zond 5 completed a journey around the moon, marking the first time animals ventured into deep space. 2 Russian tortoises, weighing between 0.34 to 0.4 kilograms each, were part of the biological payload on board. The spacecraft achieved a flyby of the moon and safely returned to Earth, setting the stage for future manned missions. The choice of tortoises was practical, as they were easily secured for the mission. 12 days before launch, the space-bound tortoises were deprived of food and water, alongside control specimens. Various terrestrial life forms, including fruit fly eggs, wheat, barley, and other plants, were also part of the payload to study the effects of cosmic radiation. Upon retrieval, scientists observed a 10% weight loss in the tortoises, but concluded that their changes were primarily due to starvation, with little impact from space travel. Albert V. There was a flight called Albert V. It was different from Albert's I to IV because there was no monkey on board. Instead, a mouse was sent 85 miles into space on this flight. Just like the earlier Albert missions, there was a problem with the parachute, and none of the animals on board were successfully brought back. Many animals that went to space had a tough time. But there's a positive side. Thanks to their sacrifices, we found out that animals could survive the journey into space, which was a big deal. Until then, only the US launched animal missions. But in 1951, a new player joined the game, changing the space race and possibly human history forever. Tardigrades. Tardigrades, also known as water bears, were sent to space on several occasions. The first time these microscopic creatures ventured beyond Earth was in September 2007 aboard the European Space Agency's Photon M3 mission. Tardigrades were included in an experiment to study their ability to withstand the harsh conditions of outer space, such as extreme temperatures and radiation. Since then, tardigrades have been part of various space missions, including the Israeli Bereshit lander in 2019 and the European Space Agency's Expo-Z R2 experiment on the International Space Station. Scientists are interested in tardigrades due to their remarkable resilience and ability to survive extreme environments, hoping to gain insights into the possibility of life surviving in space or on other planets. These small, hardy creatures have become unlikely space travelers, contributing valuable information to space exploration research. Zygon and Dezik. On July 22, 1951, the Soviet Union sent Zygon and Dezik, 2 brave dogs, into space using their R-133A1 rocket. Both the American V-2 and Soviet R-1 rockets were copies of the German A-4 test rocket, the first to reach space. Although the rockets were similar, the Soviets were better at making them land safely. Zygon and Dezik returned unharmed, but Dezik had a sad accident a week later with another dog, Lisa the front, due to a parachute failure. Despite some accidents, most animals sent on these missions came back fine. The Soviets were secretive about their operations, leading to debates about dog names and launch dates. Between 1951 and August 1957, at least 17 flights carried 23 different dogs into suborbital space, with some dogs taking multiple trips. Gordo monkey. Gordo, a South American squirrel monkey, became one of the first monkeys in space as part of NASA's AM-13 mission on December 13, 1958. Launched from Cape Canaveral, the 15-minute flight reached a height of 310 miles, exposing Gordo to weightlessness for 8.3 minutes. Despite a technical malfunction preventing the parachute's opening, Gordo's health remained stable during the mission. Unfortunately, the capsule and Gordo were lost in the South Atlantic upon re-entry, with no recovery. NASA deemed the mission successful in addressing concerns about weightlessness. Subsequent missions were also carried out on Gordo's legacy, paving the way for human space exploration. Ultimately, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space, marking a significant milestone. Abel and Baker. Abel and Baker were 2 American squirrel monkeys that became the first living beings to successfully return to Earth after traveling in space. They were part of a mission called Abel Baker, which took place on May 28, 1959, aboard the Jupiter missile AM-18. Abel, a female monkey, and Baker, a female named for her Baker's dozen of teats, were chosen for their small size and calm temperament. The spacecraft reached an altitude of about 300 miles and a speed of approximately 10,000 miles per hour. The monkeys were safely recovered after their suborbital flight, proving that living organisms could endure the physical stresses of space travel and safely return to Earth. Abel and Baker's contribution to space science marked a significant milestone in the early days of space exploration. Odważnaja and Snežinka. Two more dogs had managed to get themselves registered in the history of space travel. These Russian dogs were named Odważnaja, nicknamed Brave One, and another dog, Snežinka, nicknamed Snowflake. Both of them made a flight on the 2nd of July 1959. They were sent into space using an R-2A rocket, a Russian rocket derived from the German V-2 rocket. After orbiting the Earth multiple times, they re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. The data collected from this space travel proved exponential. Odważnaja was sent on the same mission 5 more times from 1959 to 1960. Marfusha. Along with the two Russian dogs, Odważnaja and Snežinka, was another brave astronaut called Marfusha, the first rabbit ever to travel into space. The little astronaut accompanied the dogs on the same R-2A rocket launched by the Soviet Union. This was the time when both the superpowers Russia and USA had diverted themselves from only sending monkeys or dogs into space. They were looking for significant data in the initial age of space exploration. Any sort of edge over the opponent was a +1 for them against each other. Damka and Krasavka. In December 1960, two Soviet dogs, Damka and Krasavka, were part of the Vostok space program, but faced equipment failures during their orbital flight. The rocket malfunctioned, causing the capsule to return to Earth prematurely. The planned safety measures, like ejecting the dogs and self-destruction, failed due to technical issues. The capsule, with the dogs inside, landed in deep snow, and a rescue team struggled to disarm the self-destruct mechanism due to harsh weather. After an anxious day, the capsule was opened, revealing the dogs alive but the mice dead. Damka and Krasavka became famous. Krasavka was adopted by a scientist, Oleg Gazenko, and lived a full life with his family until her passing 14 years later. The incident remained secret due to state censorship. Belka and Strelka. Belka and Strelka were two brave dogs from the Soviet Union who made history by becoming the first living beings to orbit the Earth in 1960. These furry cosmonauts embarked on a space mission aboard the spacecraft Sputnik 5, capturing the hearts of people worldwide. Their journey was inspirational to the courage of animals in the early days of space exploration. Belka, meaning squirrel in Russian, and Strelka, meaning little arrow, were carefully trained for their cosmic adventure. They circled the planet and safely returned, proving that living creatures could withstand space travel. The success of Belka and Strelka added a touch of warmth to the Cold War space race. These canine pioneers will always be remembered for their contribution to space history and the bond they shared with humans on their extraordinary journey beyond our planet. Ham. On January 31st, 1961, the US shook up the space race by launching the Mercury Redstone 2 rocket with a special passenger, Ham the chimpanzee. Trained at the Holloman Aerospace Medical Center, Ham was part of a group of 40 chimps undergoing tests and simulations to prepare for space travel. After careful selection, Ham and Minnie were the final contenders. In a surprising turn, Ham became the first living being to pilot a rocket. Despite a wayward flight, reaching higher speeds and altitudes than planned, Ham's specialized capsule kept him safe. The Navy rescued him 132 miles off course. Remarkably, Ham's space reaction times were only slightly slower than on Earth, proving astronauts could perform tasks in space. This success marked a crucial step toward the ultimate goal, sending a human into space, placing the US in a leading position in the space race. Chernushka. Chernushka, also known as Blackie, was a Soviet space dog sent into space on March 9, 1961. She traveled aboard the Korabl Sputnik 4 spacecraft as part of the Soviet Union's exploration of space effects on living beings. Unlike the earlier space dog, Laika, Chernushka's mission aimed for her safe return to Earth. Her capsule carried scientific tools to measure different things during the journey. Another occupant, a mannequin named Ivan Ivanovich, simulated how a human body might respond to space travel. Chernushka's successful trip back to Earth marked an important step in understanding space's impact on living creatures. The Soviet Union's space dog program, of which Chernushka was a part of, was conducted prior to the events of Yuri Gagarin. This mission gave an ample amount of insight on the future human spaceflights by providing crucial insights. Zvyozdokha. On March 25, 1961, a dog named Zvyozdokha finished a successful space trip. She was the last dog cosmonaut before humans went to space. Zvyozdokha was found as a stray dog and sent to space as part of the Soviet space program. The goal was to have 2 safe animal flights before sending people to space. Zvyozdokha, originally called Udacha, which means luck, went around the Earth in the Vostok ZKA spacecraft. Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, joked about superstitions and changed her name. After her safe landing in Udmurtia, the decision was made to send a man into space. This marked a crucial step in space exploration and boosted confidence in the success of human space travel. Veterok and Ugolyok. On February 22, 1966, Veterok and Ugolyok embarked on a historic space journey aboard Cosmos 110, marking a significant chapter in space exploration. The 2 K9 cosmonauts spent an impressive 21 days in orbit before safely landing on March 16th of the same year. This remarkable spaceflight set a record for its duration, a record that remained unbroken by human spacefarers until the Soyuz 11 mission in June 1971. To this day, Veterok and Ugolyok's mission holds the distinction of being the longest spaceflight ever undertaken by dogs. However, the unprecedented duration of their space travel came at a cost to their physical well-being. The dogs exhibited signs of cardiovascular deconditioning, experiencing issues such as dehydration, weight loss, and loss of muscle coordination. Despite these challenges, both Veterok and Ugolyok displayed remarkable resilience. Bonnie. In June 1969, Bonnie, a 14-pound pigtail monkey, embarked on a solo space mission aimed at studying the effects of prolonged spaceflight on living beings. Bonnie faced challenges, losing interest in assigned tasks and showing signs of distress. NASA, concerned for the astromonk's well-being, aborted the planned 30-day mission after just 9 days. Bonnie's capsule splashed down in the Pacific Ocean near Hawaii, where he was recovered and flown to Hickam Air Force Base in Honolulu for intensive care. Despite initial optimism, Bonnie died suddenly within days of returning to Earth. The cause was attributed to insufficient capsule heating. Bonnie's death sparked significant public outcry, with many expressing more concern for the monkey than for astronauts. Abrek and Bion. Abrek and Bion were 2 monkeys that went into space on the Cosmos. It was the first time the Soviet Union sent monkeys to space, and it happened 34 years after the US sent a monkey and 22 years after the Soviet Union sent humans. The monkeys, named Abrek and Bion, were about 3 years old and weighed around 4 kilograms each. These monkeys were trained to sit in special seats and do tasks for treats, like pressing a lever with their feet or following a moving light with their eyes. They also learned to eat and drink from special dispensers. During the space mission, they had sensors implanted to keep track of their blood flow and other body functions like blood pressure. The scientists wanted to see how weightlessness in space would affect the monkeys' bodies. The information we got includes details about their species, age, weight, and the things they did during the mission. Albina and a Siganka. Albina and Siganka experienced a remarkable journey when they were ejected from their capsule at an altitude of 85 kilometers, 53 miles, during a space mission. Both dogs landed safely, defying the challenges of re-entry. Albina, initially shortlisted for Sputnik 2, never had the opportunity to orbit the Earth, but played a crucial role in space exploration history. The resilience of these canine pioneers showcased the advancements in space technology and the commitment to ensuring the safety of living beings in space missions. Their unique experience contributes to the rich tapestry of early space exploration achievements. Smelaya and Malishka. Smelaya, which means brave or courageous in Russian, was supposed to take a flight in September. However, she got scared and ran away the day before the launch. Luckily, she was found the next day. Despite being scared, she bravely went on the flight with a dog named Malishka, meaning baby in Russian. Unfortunately, something went wrong with the rocket, and it didn't open the parachute as it should have. As a result, Smelaya and Malishka had a crash landing. The recovery team found them the next day. Despite the bumpy ride, both Smelaya and Malishka were okay in the end. Bars and Lisichka. Bars, Snow Leopard, and Lisichka Little Fox were part of the Vostok program, sent on a mission to orbit in July 1960. Sadly, their journey ended tragically as their rocket exploded just 28.5 seconds after launch. Bars was also known as Chaika Seagull. Several other dogs, including Dimka Smoky, Modnitsa Fashionista, and Kozyavka Booger, took part in suborbital flights. At least 4 more dogs flew on similar missions, but unfortunately 2 or more of them were lost. The dogs played crucial roles in early space exploration, paving the way for human spaceflight. Despite the challenges and losses, their contributions helped scientists understand the mystery of the spaces. The bravery and sacrifice of these canine pioneers continue to be remembered in the history of space. Bobik and Zeb. Bobik, a little dog, escaped just a few days before she was supposed to go on a plane ride on September 15, 1961. A new dog called Zib, which stands for Substitute for Missing Bobik in Russian, was found as a replacement. Ziabu was a stray dog without any training, and she was discovered running near the barracks. Surprisingly, ZB was able to make a successful trip to a distance of 100 kilometers and then return safely. Iran Space Monkey. Iran claimed to have sent a monkey into space and safely returned it in 2013, marking a milestone in space travel. The monkey reportedly traveled 72 miles above Earth in a rocket called Hisham, meaning pioneer in Persian. This achievement reflected Iran's ambitions for manned space missions. Reminiscent of the early space race between Russia and America, well, probably space travel is not so difficult at all. If a monkey can conquer space, then we should all sign up for astronaut training, right? Just let us know what you think. Shutka and Kometka. On December 22, 1960, a space mission with 2 dogs, Shutka and Kometka, didn't go as planned. They were supposed to orbit the Earth, but things didn't work out, and they didn't go that high. Luckily, the dogs were brought back safely. Even though the mission didn't succeed, this was due to the faulty rocket valve. However, there were chances of the rocket explosion, which miraculously didn't happen, and the precious lives were saved. Belisario. Belisario, a mouse born at the University of Cordoba, was part of a 1967 experiment. Selected for his quick adaptation to a harness, he was launched from Cordoba's airborne school in a capsule attached to a Yarara rocket. A team led by engineer Aldo Zeoli experimented monitoring aspects like breathing and heart rates during the rocket's 20G acceleration and 2,300-meter height. The parachute opened after 28 seconds, but winds caused the capsule to drift, requiring a helicopter rescue 50 minutes later. Belisario, though nervous and 8 grams lighter, survived. Back at the institute, he fathered healthy offspring without issues, concluding the unique space experiment. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do like and share it with your friends. Subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the upcoming amazing videos. Thank you once again,